Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Robinson, and I'm the head of financial inclusion and public policy development at Block. I'm here with Lamar Wilson, and instead of me telling you who he is, I'm going to let him tell you who he is. Lamar?
Hello, yes, my name is Lamar Wilson. I am a co-founder of Black Bitcoin Billionaire. I am also a software developer and a serial entrepreneur, and I am so happy to be here today speaking with you, Courtney.
I'm happy you're with us. So, we're setting the stage. We have an exciting series of people talking today, but we really want to root our conversation in the kind of work that you've done as an educator and as someone connected to the community to really talk about the difference that Bitcoin can make globally and domestically here in the US. So I want to start by asking, what are some examples you've seen of Bitcoin making a difference in people's lives, not just as a tool for speculation and trying to make money, but as a monetary system or payment network?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, of course, is a globally liquid asset, and so therefore it makes it really a special asset for remittance. There are people who, of course, work in the United States and then their family lives somewhere else, and Bitcoin makes it really easy to use those types of rails to send the Bitcoin to another country, and then be able to cash out in that country because it's globally liquid. There's exchanges pretty much everywhere that allow them to basically send that for a little bit of nothing. It tends what tends to happen a lot of times is the least of these, the people who don't have a lot of money, they usually get hit with the most of the fees. The least of these get hit with the fees. And so what happens is that because of that, they wind up taking large percentages of the money they could send back home to help out their family, giving it over to some third party. Bitcoin helps alleviate that. If you look, especially if you look at a place like El Salvador, where it's become legal tender, you can literally send Bitcoin directly to someone in El Salvador. They can go to a grocery store and buy something. That is huge, right? That's global. There's nobody in the middle, and it provides freedom for all those people.
And I think, touching on what you said there, really the most important part being cost always being passed down to folks who have the least ability to come up with or recuperate or be able to give that money. So it costs money to not have money, right?
Man.
So, and being able to use Bitcoin beyond an investment tool, but as a way to transfer funds, like you said, for low cost, like that's really one of the things that sticks out to you.
Oh yeah, that's really big. And then also just from the standpoint, another way that I've seen it be used is, of course, like when you have to get things done. We live in a global society, and everybody doesn't have access to bank accounts, but they have access to the internet. And so I'm not saying I didn't have access to a bank account when I've done this before, but I
Mhm.
found a great supplier in Latvia, right? And they were doing like a cartoon for me, and that cartoon allowed me to, basically push one of the. I'm a serial entrepreneur, push one of the business I was doing, but they only wanted to be paid because it was hard to get money to them. They only wanted to be paid in Bitcoin, and so it made it a lot easier for us to settle up our, you know. And allow me to take that marketing and do what I need to do, and then set up our accounts with each other just with Bitcoin. And that's a huge thing, just to be able to do that without any third party adds a whole lot of freedom to entrepreneurs and puts people on the even playing field so they don't have to be in partnership with the big banks just to get things like that done.
Yeah, true. I mean, and I think just having to access or having that third party being an intermediary between being able to transmit or use your funds, no matter what that looks like, whether that be a clearinghouse or a central body or any of those things. I mean, there's a delicate balance between keeping the monetary system safe, but then also implementing things that keep people out of it, right?
Right. Right.
So knowing that and knowing that this is another tool that we have in our arsenal to connect people to the economy, like use Bitcoin or and be able to connect in a different sort of way without those banks. What are the barriers that you see to standing in the way of people using Bitcoin or becoming connected to the network? And then as an add-on to that, not to throw too much at you at once. So like getting to know about Bitcoin and accessing it, that what's the barrier there? And then what are general barriers to folks having an equitable financial future in our current
Oh,
system?
so to answer the first question, I think one of the largest barriers is education. I
Mhm.
think there are so many taboos around Bitcoin, so many things that people don't really understand. They hear it in the news. I think it hurts a lot of times because there are so many of these other coins that come out that they act like they're on the same level as a Bitcoin, and then people don't have the education around them. And then when somebody comes through and rug pulls them or takes their money, so to speak, for anybody who doesn't
Mhm.
know what that means, then all of a sudden they throw that in with Bitcoin, not realizing that these are different things. I think education is extremely, extremely key. And I think there's a barrier there because not a lot of people, number one, not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people can educate about it. And so we have to continue to keep pushing education and making sure that it gets, again, that education especially gets to the least of these. So we have to be intentional about getting that education there, because normally when the people don't have a lot of money, a lot of resources, they also don't normally get the education first because nobody cares because they don't have a lot of money, right? And then the other thing is that for those people, because you can see I keep focusing on those people that don't have a lot, that might be, marginalized, disenfranchised, just people who are normally kind of cast to the side and kind of the latecomers. In this society, I mean, if you don't have a bank account, if you don't have credit, there's hardly not many assets you can actually deal with in this country. And that has been huge especially for people that look like me in this country, because there's always been inequality when it comes to access to resources, access to loans at the same rates. These things are still happening. A lot of people think that will be over because we're in 2022, but we've seen studies as late as even last year or 2 years ago where people weren't getting the same appraisal on their houses, which means what happens when you don't get the same appraisal on your house? What does the value of your house look like? Those kind of things. And so when you don't have access to these assets, and you don't have a bank account, Bitcoin provides a certain level of access that is different from those that allows everyone to have access. It's accessible to everyone, like period, all around the globe. Because you could even go peer to peer, right? Like if you had to, I could just exchange what I have for Bitcoin right on the street if I had to, without any other third party, and that's huge.
And if you just wanted to give me your Bitcoin without anybody in the middle, you could do. No, but beyond that, I mean, what you said is absolutely true. And I mean, even in talking about the history of the discrimination that's embedded right here where we are in the United States. I mean, we have a wonderful slate of people and talking all over the world. The Human Rights Foundation does so much work globally, but we don't have to look outside of the borders of where we are, in particular, Lamar and I, to know that there have been in law, discrimination has been put into law. It's taken overturning laws, Supreme Court decisions, civil rights movements, all sorts of things for people of many, many different ethno and socioeconomic backgrounds, not just ours, to be able to have full access to the economic system. So, my background is in financial services, is in consumer banking. And so hearing these things, you can take Bitcoin completely out of the equation and you can stand on the flat premise that the system we're in right now is not equitable. Though there have been attempts and though we have been trying, it's been built for hundreds of years since the National Banking Act in the United States on scaffolding that was not meant for everyone to be able to climb and build on. So just putting that out there as a touch point. So what you were saying absolutely resonates a lot. So just knowing that, how do you think marginalized communities should think about Bitcoin, both here in the United States and globally?
I just think the nature of Bitcoin and how it's built is a tool for empowerment, right? The decentralization of it allows you to have something that empowers the user instead of being in power over the user, like the system that we currently have. And I think that, to me, is one of those things that without Bitcoin, we probably wouldn't have that kind of a system. I was thinking about this the other day, that a lot of times, like, things are kind of like in this country, things have been confiscated from certain people, right? Like lands, people have been told to walk to other places, like literally walked from where they were somewhere else.
And this is not yours anymore.
Yeah, it's not yours anymore. Farmland has been taken. Even when people had gold, they came through and said, we need to get all of your gold. It's like, you could take my property from me. We're talking about eminent domain, highways getting pushed through certain low income areas. Like this type of thing, when you think about it, is very egregious. It really affects a certain group of individuals who don't have the political power. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, though. Those who have political power can use that system to stay in power over certain individuals. When you have Bitcoin and code is rule, now all of a sudden you are empowering the people to just basically have the same set of rule set that everyone else has. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have more because you're doing it or whatever. It just means that now all of a sudden you have an alternative that is outside of a system that has been set up to basically keep you in a certain position.
All right. So what is it that makes you personally passionate about Bitcoin?
Freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. When I first got into Bitcoin, I read the white paper, and the
Mhm.
first thing I saw was freedom. It wasn't money. I know a lot of people now, they focus so heavily on the price going up and down. It literally was the fact that me being a software developer, having a finance background, have a finance degree,
Mhm.
it basically was the best marriage of those two disciplines I could probably see. And then what I saw is because I have software, I'm a software developer by trade, I could build my own wallet, hold my own keys again, and not and have something that's not confiscatable,
Mhm.
something that I could hide away from everyone and have some privacy with, right? Until I started to interact, of course, but I can kind of keep that away and kind of hold a source of wealth for my family, for the people moving forward. And it wasn't even worth a lot of money back then, but I still looked at it as wealth because I understand that being able to have something that no one else can hold on to or no one else can take, and that you have all the freedom to move wherever you want, is a sign of having of wealth, of having an asset that can actually be something in the future. And of course, it's only 21 million, so that doesn't
Scarcity.
hurt as well. Yeah, there's that scarcity
Yeah.
added
Yeah,
to
no,
it
but
too. But
that's so
so freedom
important.
is my biggest thing. Yeah.
Touching on the free, I mean, you tie that back beautifully to what you said earlier, just knowing that you have something that cannot be taken, because unfortunately we know no matter the good intentions or how well you work within the system that we have, historically there have been times, historically but also currently, that
Currently.
those things can be taken from you through no fault of your own or what you've done, but rather immutable characteristics. So knowing that you
Mm.
have control there, I see is a very important thing. So you also said, talking about how it wasn't when you got into Bitcoin and you started on this journey of education and connecting to the economy in that way, it was not as much as it is now. And you also talked about like the price fluctuation. So volatility in the asset class, volatility with Bitcoin, it's a thing. We see it.
Yep.
So knowing that, what do you say to folks, or like what challenge does that present to people who don't have the capital to go out and get Bitcoin, or try to decide if it's even worth taking the risk of moving their fiat or government backed currency or whatever other asset to Bitcoin? Like what is the challenge there?
Yes, it's extremely challenging, especially because people don't understand long term. They don't understand having a low time preference. So what happens a lot of times is people look at the price going up and down, fluctuating, and they think, "Oh, I've lost this much," right? And I always try to explain to them like this. I say, "Listen, if you bought a house, let's say you just bought some land on the street, and then three doors down, somebody got shot, the value of your property would go down, but you can't see that." Like nobody's standing in front of your house saying, "Hey, your property value is going down," right? You don't see that until people start selling on the street because
Right.
it's not a highly liquid market. The difference is that in Bitcoin we have a 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 day a week market that we are always seeing what the people down the street are thinking about the property value. The question is though, and I always ask them, would you sell your house if it was just one shooting down the street? Probably not. Most people wouldn't. It's like, oh, that's a crazy person who did this down the street. Or if there's well, a school or a hospital that went in across the street, it might bring the property value up. You wouldn't just immediately sell your house. You probably know that there's a certain amount of value in your house, and you would not understand that. And so, what I try to get people to do is to see the value of Bitcoin for themselves. And even if you have just a little bit, don't put your rent money and your shoe money and your diaper money and all the things that you actually need into it. Take your time, be slow, and learn how to dollar cost average with the money you can afford to lose. And I always say the extra money, like every single person in the world, I don't care how poor they are, how rich they are, there's something they spend money on. They know they don't have any business spending money on. And a lot of times, like I always use the young lady who talks about the crab legs. I ask her what something she spends money on. She says, I can't help it. I'm addicted to eating crab legs every week. And I told her, I said, well, listen, go get you some imitation crab, and then use the rest of that money and put it on Bitcoin. And everybody laughs about that, but that's the kind of
Because you
idea
know it
that
doesn't
I
taste the
get to.
same. That's why we
Yeah.
laugh. It
It's imitation. It shouldn't be. But yeah, but that's the thing. So I try to use that idea because then you could deal with the volatility when you dollar cost average across time, right? When you
right.
basically put the same amount in over a period of time, you're gonna get the average of the price. And so the price really doesn't matter to you as much when you begin to start dollar cost averaging.
All right. So the takeaway there is don't let the fluctuation be your deterrent. Know that you have, if you have anything to leverage, then it's worth trying to see. Good. And
Yeah.
we always do have something. We can always swap out the crab or the KRS. We can. Lamar, is there any specific thing that you want to leave us with, knowing that you are a person who has the benefit of being an educator, an inventor, an investor, and can go across every asset of what Bitcoin with a capital B is about? What would you want people to know?
I think people just need to give it a chance. And what I mean by that is stop looking at the news, stop watching all the headlines, and actually start learning. Get some books, find people who know what they're talking about, and learn for yourself. A lot of times, the narratives that are in the news, whether good or bad, like to the moon and all of this stuff, that stuff will get you deterred from what's really real. And the real part of it is that we finally have an asset class that is outside of the hands of the control of human beings, um, people who are fickle, political, right? That's outside of the control of them, not necessarily from a price perspective, but from a control and being able to be confiscated or being able to censor it. There's the censorship resistance to it that you can't censor Bitcoin, and that is extremely powerful if we want to move more towards freedom, self sovereignty, and understanding the power that we have. For many, listen, this is all for many years, power has been kept by certain people, and normally the way they do that is by having asymmetric information. So if it was libraries, the libraries are only held by the kings, right? And so you didn't have access to information. So what did it do? It kept a lot of people poor because you didn't have access to information. Communication the same way. They only allow certain people to send letters and get information or communication out. The internet has stopped a lot of that stuff, right? It allowed it actually added democracy to a lot of this information. And now with the invention of Bitcoin, now we have democracy in our money.
That's why they
And I
call it
think
the currency of the internet. Is that what?
there you go. The internet of money. Look, I've heard people say the internet of money or the money of the internet. Either way it goes, I think as we continue to move forward, democratizing these things to give people a more even playing field from the jump is a powerful thing we should be doing as human beings, because we shouldn't try to usurp power over one another. We should learn how to kind of work together and empower one another, because as we continue to empower, everyone gets uplifted. So that's just do your own research. That's what I want to say.
So thank you so much, Lamar. And if there's anywhere that folks want to go to learn what you have learned, or know what you know, or just generally start to get a grasp on some of the things we've been talking about, where would you send them?
Oh, well, I mean, of course you have Twitter. You can find me everywhere on Twitter. I mean, on the internet, on Twitter, on Clubhouse, on Instagram, BIGMARH, Big Mar, BIGMARH. Also on Clubhouse, you can find us at Black Bitcoin Billionaire, blackbitcoinbillionaire.com. And I forgot to say this. One of the initiatives we're doing right now, along with Block and the Sean Carter Foundation, our Cash App in the Sean Carter Foundation is the Bitcoin Academy. So we do some education there as well. So that's another. You can't really find us there, but that's something I wanted to bring up that
So
we're
the
doing as an initiative.
bitcoinacademy.com.
Yeah, the
Find
bitcoinacademy.com. You
Lamar
can learn more, find
there.
more information there. Yeah, you can find me there as well. So yeah, blackbitcoinbillionaire.com, and Big Mar, and then Black Bitcoin Billionaire on Clubhouse. And then on YouTube, make sure you start checking there, because we're going to start putting up more information. Black Bitcoin Billionaire on YouTube as well. So
All right, Lamar. Thank you.
thank you. It's been real.